Welcome to The Explainer. We're all about peeling back the layers of the stories you think you know. Yeah, you've probably heard this music before. It's Nessun Dorma, one of the most famous opera arias in history. It's so big, it basically escaped the opera house and became this global anthem for, victory and triumph. And maybe you even know the story that goes with it, the tale of Princess Turandot. She's this icy, beautiful princess who challenges any guy who wants to marry her with 3 riddles. And if they get them wrong, well, off with their heads. Okay, but here's the twist. What if I told you that this completely wild, fantastical story was actually inspired by a real-life Mongol warrior? A woman who was, frankly, way more powerful and famous than the character she eventually became. Today, we're digging into the secret history of Turandot. So before we get to the real warrior, let's start with the story most of us are familiar with, the opera that's been blowing audiences away for almost 100 years. Giacomo Puccini's final masterpiece, Turandot, hit the stage in 1926. And if it's known for one thing, it is pure spectacle. I mean, we are talking over-the-top costumes, absolutely fantastical sets, and a giant chorus that just fills the entire stage with sound. And that scale, it's totally on purpose. As director Rob Harriott says, it's a sensory overload. You kind of have to be there to get it. The whole point is for it to be this huge, overwhelming experience. So, the plot is basically a super high-stakes fairy tale. You've got this formidable Princess Turandot who really, really doesn't want to get married. So she comes up with a deadly test. Answer 3 riddles, or you're executed. Simple as that. Then this prince, Kalaf, shows up, gets them all right, but she still says no. So he gives her one last chance. Guess my name by morning, and you can kill me instead. But come on, a story this elaborate with the riddles and the life-or-death romance, it didn't just pop into Puccini's head. It actually has this whole hidden history that's way older and honestly a lot more surprising than the opera itself. Okay, so let's become history detectives for a minute. To find the real story, we've got to follow the breadcrumbs backwards in time, peeling away all the different versions to get to the original source. And what you find is that the story we have today is basically the end result of a centuries-long game of telephone. It all started with a real Mongol princess, born way back around 1260. Then, hundreds of years later, a French writer found her story. Then it got turned into a play, and finally it became Puccini's brand opera. And the really crucial moment, the point where everything changes, comes from this guy, François Pétis de la Croix. So it's the early 1700s, he's writing a biography of Genghis Khan, and he just stumbles upon the story of this warrior princess named Khutulun. He was obviously inspired, but as you're about to see, he also took some, let's just say, major creative liberties. Okay, and this is the big one. This is where the story gets completely transformed, probably because Delacroix was trying to make it more digestible for his audience back in 18th century Europe. He totally changed her challenge. So, get this. The real princess, Khutulun, demanded that any suitor had to beat her in a wrestling match. If they lost, they owed her 100 horses. Delacroix swaps this amazing test of physical power for a test of brains, the riddles. And then he jacks his stakes up from losing some horses to, well, losing your life. So this whole switcheroo, from a real warrior into a fictional riddler, it just makes you wonder, right? Who was this incredible woman who started it all? All right, it is time. Let's finally meet the historical powerhouse whose life was so extraordinary it literally became a legend. And Khutulun, wow, she was the real deal. Not just royalty, she was the great-granddaughter of Genghis Khan. She was a skilled warrior who actually fought in battles, and she was the undefeated wrestling champion of the entire Mongol Empire. In fact, she was so famous that the explorer Marco Polo himself wrote about her, claiming she won a herd of 10,000 horses from all the suitors she beat. And you know, the craziest part? Her story isn't just stuck in the 13th century. It's constantly being rediscovered, finding whole new audiences, even right now. Just look at this reaction from somebody who was watching the Marco Polo series on Netflix. It just perfectly captures that aha moment of discovery, that surprise and total excitement when you realize that this incredible character, this kick-ass female wrestler, wasn't just made up for TV, she was real. And that's a really key point. While here in the West, we might know her through this kind of distorted version, Turandot, back in her homeland, her true story as a warrior princess and a champion athlete, that's the legend that endures. And that leaves us with something to chew on, doesn't it? The journey from Khutulun to Turandot gave us one of the most famous operas in the world, no question. But as we keep adapting real lives for the stage and for the screen, we have to ask ourselves, what do we gain when we create these amazing new legends? And what powerful truths about the real people behind them do we risk losing along the way?